Welcome back to another video of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I am on board Wonder of the Seas, Royal Caribbean's amazing ship. I'm actually trying to compete here with the sound of a DJ. This is a day at sea. As you can see today, we are out at sea, and it's been a pretty amazing sunny day. And in any case, I wanted to use this video to talk a little bit about the suite class, the various suite classes, and what you might expect. I think a lot of cruisers want to know, is it worth it getting into a suite? And of course, every cruise line out there has different categories of suites. They have different types of suites, different perks that go along with them. Most of them will have something like this, which is a sheet that will detail, this is typically on the website too, it'll detail to you all the perks of a particular suite class. If you're with Royal Caribbean, of course, you're going to get different types of rooms, and then you're going to have different types of classes that go along with suite classes. You even have members of the Pinnacle Club when they reach 750 points that they get special privileges, including on this ship or Oasis class ships, if they have it, access to the coastal kitchen, and in this case deck 18, which is the suite deck. It's really loud down there. I'm going to actually move closer to the microphone just because I'm trying to compete with the subs down there, the subwoofers that are just blasting away. It's super loud, of course, on a sea day. So I think one of the things that people want to know about is, to what extent should you pay more money for a suite, and what do you get for that particular class? So I'm going to go through some of that. I'm actually going to switch to some non-live video because I'm worried the music is pretty darn loud right now, but I'm going to go through the various suite classes and talk about some of my experiences here, including things that aren't on this sheet. A lot of times you look at this either on the website or on board the ship, and this will come in your stateroom when you visit. But sometimes you think, well, this is all you're getting, and I want to make the point that you're getting much more beyond this. In fact, as I came in today, just over here, I was taking an image of the towels, and you might be wondering right now, well, why was he taking an image of the towels? How does it relate to the suite class? And by the way, we during our stay are in the sky class, so it's not the highest level, but I'm going to get to the towels and everything else, so stay tuned here in the video today. All right, so the first area I'm going through in this video in terms of the suite experience are various benefits. So the thing to say about this is, depending on the cruise line that you're traveling on, if it's Royal Caribbean or Celebrity or Princess, you should probably check ahead of time and see the different classes that are available. So again, as I mentioned in the video, we were in the Sky class of the three classes here. That includes concierge service, coastal kitchen access, priority boarding, priority dining reservations. I have to say that this part of the cruise experience, in terms of thinking about a suite, does get super confusing. So two things to recommend. One is to check ahead of time what the various suite classes are for your particular cruise line. What are the benefits? As I'll mention at the end, kind of weigh the costs and benefits and how much you want to spend, and whether or not auctions are available to try to upgrade your room to a suite. The other thing to think about is that sometimes there are benefits that aren't listed on those lists that you find on the various websites, in this case of Royal Caribbean. So I discovered that when you get on the ship, you'll find you can get handouts or other information from guest services, or if you have a concierge, from the concierge desk. For example, on Royal Caribbean, there were some, you could say, minor perks, but still perks. You got 1 or 2 free pressings in your room. I'll mention the thing about towels later, but basically you didn't have to check out towels for any of the beach days at sea, which would be the pool deck beach towels, or if you go to a place like Coco Key, which is the Royal Caribbean official site for the beach experience, you don't have to check out towels. So it just is important to check that out when you get on your ship, and then also before you get aboard, and check out the various perks available. So quite obviously with rooms, you're going to see there's a huge difference between the different classes when it comes to rooms. Typically, the more you pay, the better the room. And by better, you might have a bigger balcony size. You might have, instead of just one small room with a bed, you're going to have maybe a couch. As you can see in the room here, you have kind of this seating area off to the side, and then you also have the bed, and you can pull that curtain and kind of have some privacy. Here's a little more video. I didn't take a ton of video of the room on this trip, but you can just kind of get the basics of it. So again, this is with a sky class room, the type of room that you get. And in addition to the room, of course, you're also going to get all those perks that we're talking about today. So I think in general, this is probably an area of the cruise experience that is the most, how can I say it, the most commonsensical across the various cruise lines. So by that I mean, if you have a small room, typically, obviously, that's not going to have that suite experience or the various sailing class experiences that are available. I noticed the lights are flickering here on my video, but I was just trying to take a very quick video of the room so you can see that you're getting a much bigger room experience for the price that you're paying. And it's certainly something that we noticed for sure. By the way, here is, I think, coming up, you have a couple TVs, and this is actually a TV that comes down, a remote TV that comes down for viewing in the bed. So every ship that you might sail on with the various companies are going to have different room features. So the next aspect of this, I say, sort of no crowds. And to start this off, we can take a look here at just going through the hallway that is part of the suite experience here on Royal Caribbean Wonder of the Seas. And so one of the cool things about this is that you're on an upper floor, and then you have a lot of private spaces that are intended just for you, and indeed you need your own suite key card. One of the things I noticed, and I don't have photos of this during the cruise, is that there's different colors of key cards. There's green. This is Royal Caribbean again, Wonder of the Seas. There's green. We had blue for Sky Class. There's Pinnacle members. They have, I think, pins and special colored cards. There's yellow cards, etc. So what you're seeing here, though, is kind of the one of the points, I think, of maybe doing like a suite experience, and we're going into the hallways. So this is almost in kind of a rectangular shape, and at the very end of this, you'll see the entrance to Coastal Kitchen. Apologies for the weird issue here with my lighting, but one of the things I like about this, if you compare it to the standard guest rooms, is you have a much wider corridor. And as you notice here, there's much more attention to detail in terms of the corridor. The carpeting, the lighting, the art stuff. It's a much more muted and less busy and less kind of chaotic feel than you get when you walk the halls in the standard classes. I thought I had a video of the non-suite hallways. I don't. But here's another point I'm trying to make, I guess, here. If you look at my video of the buffet, one of the advantages of doing something like a suite experience on any ship, and certainly on Royal Caribbean, since I'm very familiar with them, is avoiding some of the crowds. Now, this is the buffet. Actually, it's a great buffet, and so well designed and laid out, but because of the size of this ship, the fact that you can have over 6,000 passengers and 3,000 or more crew, it starts to really feel busy on certain days, particularly sea days. So if it's a sea day, the buffet is going to be very crowded. This was a case actually where I think I didn't end up eating, though I got a plate, and I was just like, well, I think I'm going to go get some appetizers at the suite area, because it's just a much different experience eating in an area where there's, less of a crowd. This is one of the public events. This was one of the parades that they had going on. I actually sped this up. But the point about this is sometimes you want to actually be a part of the crowd. So it's not like you won't be able to experience the other things that the non-suite guests experience, but you kind of get a little more opportunity to decide. Now, as we're looking at some of the entertainment, including their really wonderful water show, there is often priority seating as a perk that goes along with this kind of benefit that maybe you're not avoiding the crowd, but you get to decide where you want to sit. So everything obviously comes with a price, and so if you take advantage of a suite package on your cruise, there are going to be perks like this that we'll get into a little bit later. But I think avoiding crowds is something that we really noticed on this cruise compared to other cruises. Again, as you see one of the pool decks or the sun decks here, On a sea day, it's going to be very packed. You probably won't be able to get into the pool. This was one of their cool Mediterranean buffet experiences I wanted to try out. We read a lot about it, and it's open to all guests, but because it was so busy and the line was so long and the food, frankly, was picked over as I walked through the crowd here, again, I decided to get something else. This is another one. This is their Mexican restaurant that I heard very good things about. You can get tacos and quesadillas and nachos. Same deal, though. Often the lines were so long, I decided I didn't want to wait. So maybe for me, the number one thing I noticed, at least with this suite experience, again, as we're seeing here, this is the direct area past the elevators where you go up and you get to the suites only area. So you really did feel like it was exclusive. You felt a difference immediately as you went up these stairs in terms of the decor, just in terms of how relaxed it was. It was never hustle and bustle, just a much different atmosphere than a lot of the other decks of the ship, whether those are entertainment decks or whether those are decks. And I think I'm going to look into the pool area here. I want to say this was a sea day, although I think we're actually docked there. So maybe we had just docked or maybe we're just leaving. But get that. I was just quiet there because I wanted you to hear the sound inside the Coastal Kitchen. Again, that's the exclusive restaurant that you get if you upgrade to at least the Sky Class or higher. Pinnacle members also have privileges, and those are the ones that have so many years of cruising with Royal Caribbean. Here's the exclusive Sun Deck that only is available to suite guests. This is the picture of the Coastal Kitchen. So again, that's sort of being able to be more secluded and to get away from the crowds, particularly on a sea day. This is the lounge, which has the really cool buffet with petit fours and little appetizers. But we found that to be one of the best possible perks. So of course, doing a suite experience like this on Royal Caribbean is about the perks and the extras. And I'll sort of say I don't know the difference between a perk and an extra, but again, something as simple as when you first check in, you get this indication that you are a suite member. And I don't have images of it, but right as you enter the in Port Canaveral, outside of Orlando, the cruising port, you get priority access, and we probably saved at least an hour skipping the line for the standard rooms. This is the image here of the concierge desk, which is also inside the suite area, only for the suite guests. And we had two amazing concierges, if that's the plural of it, Norman and Junior. I believe I have a picture of Junior coming up here. And that itself was a totally different experience. Literally, you wake up in the morning, you have your breakfast, and for us, it was like a 10-foot walk into the Coastal Kitchen because the back door was really near our suite. And so we would talk to Junior and we would ask questions about anything we wanted to know about. The other cool thing is before you get on the ship, you're already getting emails from the concierge or concierges, I can't say that, the plural of concierge, that you have aboard. In the case of Royal Caribbean, it was two. And they're there for most hours of the day. They can help you, booking experiences. They can help you with embarking, disembarking, getting in and out of the ports. And certainly on the day that you leave, they allowed us to get onto the elevator and did a personal checkout for us. So that saved a ton of time and ton of hassle because on checkout day, of course, the elevators are crazy with people with their suitcases, whoever still has a suitcase, whoever didn't, check it the night before. This is the inside of the suite only area. And this was another great perk for us. You could just sit down, you could order a drink. To the left, you're going to see here the Coastal Kitchen, which is where we ate. There's a bar there. Really amazing experience. And then looking down the hall there, you can see that's the where the rooms actually are. What we loved about this experience was any time of the day, whether it was breakfast or afternoon for a snack, we can actually go and get an appetizer. This was the breakfast spread. And it was just another part of the experience that I think really helps justify the bigger price. And this is kind of my video of the whole spread. You can see these are serious appetizers. It's not like Mott Sticks or Hot Pockets. It's like really good desserts, really high-end stuff. Meat and cheese plates, fruits, all kinds of desserts throughout the day. And depending on the time of day, of course, it would be sort of geared at that time of day or that meal, if it was the breakfast time or the afternoon time. You can certainly do this without the suite experience. So on other ships we've been on, for example, we were on a Princess cruise to Hawaii a couple years back. And when we had the munchies in the middle of the day, or if we wanted a cup of coffee, here's their amazing coffee machine, Lavazza Coffee. Some of the best coffee I've had ever on a cruise ship. Actually, I would say it's the best coffee I've had on a cruise ship. But as you can see here, you get hungry in the middle of the day. When we were on the Princess cruise, we didn't have this experience, so we had to just go to the buffet and eat there or have our coffee there, which is certainly fine. You can do that. The thing about a suite is it's not like you're going to be hurting if you don't do the suite category or class on your cruise ship. Cruise ships are amazing. They've upped their games over the years in terms of what they provide to guests. And so certainly being able to, is that a shot of the hallway? Oh, that's a shot of the hallway. So check that out. That's the shot of the hallway I was telling you about earlier of the non-suite areas. And on a typical day, it's really hustling and bustling. So there's like a lot of people moving. So another justification, I think, for maybe doing the suite. So just like perks, extras are things that are in addition to your typical guest experience. In some cases, you'd have to pay for these things if you didn't have the suite experience. Again, here's another shot of the coastal kitchen. This is an area, though, I will say there's a lot of variation in terms of what you get. So what I'm showing you here are some of the meals we had at the coastal kitchen. Absolutely amazing food. If you were not in this particular class of suite, there's one other below it, which I think is called, is it the junior suite? There's one class below this that's a green card that if you want to get into the coastal kitchen, you may. It doesn't cost extra, but it's only on a space available basis. So we upgraded to the suite that got us into the Sky class because we kind of said, you know what, we really want to take advantage of the coastal kitchen on a ship that is this big. It might be a nice opportunity to avoid the crowds and get some very good service. The food was amazing. The service was amazing. Definitely one of the best restaurants I've ever been to. The maitre d' who would check you in, they were amazing. And you just see what a relaxed, amazing atmosphere. I mean, look at the money they spent on this. By the way, this is Super Mario. I may have a video about him, but he is in the Guinness Book of World Records, basically, for doing the most cruises. And here is his office that he always has set up if he's on a Royal Caribbean ship. And I'll talk more about that later, but he was often in there with us in the coastal kitchen, so it was cool to meet him. Again, I mentioned a thing about towels, so one of the extras is if you are a suite guest, you get complimentary towels that you don't have to check out, so it's not a huge thing. This is another extra. So this was an invitation we got from Norman and Junior, which was a tour of the bridge by some of the officers, got to meet the captain, etc. So very cool experience. Again, on other cruise lines we've been on, like a Princess cruise, you either had to pay for it or you got lucky and were allowed the opportunity. So a lot of variation there. And the next area we're talking about here is time. But the variation I want to mention is that if you are a suite guest, you don't know exactly what extra perks sometimes you'll get. So you might get a backstage tour of the Aqua Show. You might get a bridge tour as we did. They vary. And it does seem somewhat random in terms of how people are chosen. So one thing to think about if you decide doing the suite experience here on your cruise ship. And I guess it's here in this section, another important thing to think about in terms of deciding whether to do oh, that's me waving. I'm like, why am I wiping the window? No, I'm waving. We're departing Coco Cay, which is the kind of special area for Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, etc. And that is the Celebrity Beyond that is docked next to us. We've also been on a Celebrity ship and we loved it. And we had not a suite, but we had this, actually I think it was called the Aqua Suite. And it came with this perk where we got to eat in a special restaurant. And that was our first experience eating in a special suite-only restaurant. We really liked it. And I think that very much influenced our perspective on whether or not, as I'll talk about a little bit later, to do the auction and to bid for the higher price for the suite. You just kind of get used to it. It's like if you're maybe used to first class train experience versus standard class, maybe that affects your decision in the future as far as whether you're willing to pay the extra price. And the extra price can be significant. There's no, to be totally honest, there's no mystery about that. It's going to cost you more. The question of how much more is something we'll get into in a little bit later. But this next area, I just want to mention that I think one of the things that justifies paying a greater price for a suite is how it saves you time. So from the minute we got on the ship, we saved an hour at least. So when we got to the port, I wish I had pictures of it, but there was this tremendously long line. And once we checked in and we got our special status, the Sky Class, they said, oh, please go to this individual desk here. And it was a much different experience. Now, not a big deal. Waiting an hour in line is not a huge deal to get on your cruise, but it's one of the things we noticed. Also, when we disembarked the ship, Junior and Norman were at the elevator. We were allowed to keep our luggage. I'm still waving, getting distracted by my waving here. I was weighing the waving to the other ship that day. But it saved us a ton of time when we disembarked because they were there. They actually have a special thing where they can hold the elevator and it bypasses all the other floors. So you get an immediate exit from the ship. Now, of course, when you get out of there, you're with everybody else and you feel that effect of the crowd. But I definitely will say it saves you a ton of time if you do a suite package. Now, service, I think, is one of the main things that you really feel when you're doing something like this, a suite experience. I've mentioned a lot of this already, and these are some videos, I believe, of us on the merry-go-round on the boardwalk section, which was super fun. And, of course, for the public areas of the ship, when you are enjoying them, you are not, necessarily getting any perks. But the perks come in areas that you maybe don't notice. When you want to escape the crowd, when you want to save some time, when you want a different experience or a more intimate experience. And the service that you get if you do a suite experience versus non-suite experiences, just based on all the other lines we've been on, Princess and Celebrity, is pretty substantial. Having Norman and Junior as the two of the concierge folks on the ship, I can't say the plural of that, was amazing. And we didn't have to stand in line for guest services. We had a quick question. We can even email them during our stay, of course, before our stay. Making reservations, it was much easier. And then this service you note in restaurants like the Coastal Kitchen, just the staff up there, McBell, who was our cabin steward, was absolutely amazing. And I would say on Royal Caribbean, from what I saw, there were only a couple of employees who worked in one of the recreational areas. I'm not going to out them, but those were literally two bad employees the entire time we were on the ship, who were just like stoic and never were helpful. But everybody else was so amazing. So is it worth it, I think, is the question here. And this is where I think it gets very subjective for me, because you ask questions like, well, how much are you willing to pay? And to what extent are you going to use everything that comes with the experience of being in a suite? Certainly some of the things, to keep in mind are the costs, and I'll get into some tips here in just a minute. But you definitely want to think about if there's certain things you're not going to be using. If you have no use for a concierge, or if you don't want to dine in a restaurant that's a specialty restaurant or above sort of the standard buffet in the restaurants that are part of the normal typical experience for someone who's not upgrading, then maybe it doesn't make sense for you to do a suite. There was one woman I ran into in the Coastal Kitchen who told me that she got one of the, and I think earlier I said Celebrity Aqua Suites. Maybe they were also called Aqua Suites, but there were some suites that were right next to the Performance Aqua Theater area, and she told me she paid like $40,000 for those. That's insane. We didn't pay anything close to that, but I think everybody has a limit, obviously based on budget, based on some of these factors. So what I would say is, again, think about your price and budget and how much you're willing to spend. If you only want to spend $100 more, it might make sense if your cruise ship line does an auction to invest in an auction and see if you could get moving from an interior to a maybe to an exterior without a balcony. Again, all the room prices vary on the various cruise lines. Opportunities and interests are also a part of this. And when I talk about opportunities, I'm talking about specifically programs that involve auctions. So what could happen is you'll get an email, as we did. They call it the Royal Up experience. You have almost a slider. I don't have a picture of this, but when you get the email, you log in and you make your offer. And you could put that between $100 more, $1,000 more, $2,000 more. There's a ton of information online that people offer about success and lack of success. I sort of discovered that it's not really, there's nothing you can base on in terms of anything factual. There's probably an algorithm, and really what's going on here is just like airlines are trying to get rid of unsold seats, or hotels who maybe sell unsold rooms to Booking or other travel agency sites. Cruise ships are trying to do the same. They don't want to sail with empty rooms. So to incentivize this, they offer opportunities for people to bid on these rooms. And for what we were willing to pay, I think it was definitely worth it. We weren't willing to pay any price, but we thought, let's take a shot. And indeed, once we got notification of this, we were told that our old room reservation had been canceled, and we were now officially booked in the new room. And at least on Royal Caribbean's Royal Up program, it's immediate. So you definitely don't want to bid on a room if you don't want to pay for it, because they literally will charge your credit card if your bid is successful. You can also bid in the case of the Royal Up program on Royal Caribbean on multiple rooms. And so you could take a shot at different levels of rooms, if there's different classes, a suite class, etc. So again, I think there's a lot that is offered in terms of the extras. Balance these factors. Think about your time, how much time you want to save if you do a suite experience. Think about your budget, the costs associated with this. Think about opportunities for auctions if they exist to maybe get a cheaper price. And then also think about, will you use the things that are offered with all these extras that come with a higher price? If you don't, if you're just going to go to, like we did a Princess cruise once that was, I think it was like 15 or more cities, a 22-day cruise. It was all about the ports. So we booked the cheapest inside room because we knew it was all going to be about visiting the ports, and we didn't necessarily care about the room experience. Whereas in this Caribbean cruise, we knew it was going to be more like stay in the room, hang out on the ship kind of thing. So we wanted to up our experience a little bit in terms of bidding on one of the suites. So hopefully some of these tips today were useful for you in whatever decision you make in the future with your cruising. Okay, well, that's going to be it today. Again, we are having a sunny day here aboard Royal Caribbean's Wonder of the Seas. Amazing experience overall. Of course, complemented by the amazing suite service and all the amenities I talked about in this video. So I appreciate you listening. I'll be back with more videos here for the Immersive Royals Handbook.